Hi, friends. We continue our journey through Holy Week. As a reminder, Jesus and his friends, his disciples, have come to Jerusalem in large part to celebrate the festival of Passover. Today, we are going to be reminded of what Passover is, the story that it comes from, and then the beginnings of Jesus' Passover story. So we're going to be reading from two books today. The first is the Children of God Storybook Bible. The other is Growing in God's Love. Let us first hear the story of Passover from the book of Exodus. Moses told Pharaoh, "Let my people go." But Pharaoh said no. So God sent plagues to convince Pharaoh to let the Hebrew people go. First, God turned the water into blood. Then God sent frogs and gnats and flies. Then the cattle died, and people and their animals got sores on their skin. There was thunder and hail, and a great cloud of locusts filled the sky, and darkness covered the land for 3 days. After each plague, Pharaoh agreed to let the Hebrew people go, but then he would harden his heart and say no. Finally, God wept, because now God had to send the most terrible plague of all. "Mark your doors with lamb's blood," God told Moses to tell the Hebrew families. On that dreadful night, death passed over the streets, and in every Egyptian family, the firstborn died. The Hebrews called that night Passover, because death passed over the Hebrew homes that were marked with lamb's blood and spared their children's lives. "Go, be gone," Pharaoh cried as he held the body of his eldest son. The Hebrews quickly left, but when Pharaoh saw that there was no one to build his pyramids, he hardened his heart once again. He sent his army to chase the Hebrews down and bring them back into slavery. The Hebrews fled from Egypt and at last arrived at the edge of the sea. They looked behind them and saw Pharaoh's horses and chariots racing toward them. They were trapped. "God, help us!" they cried. Moses said, "Don't be afraid. God is with us." God told Moses to hold his staff over the sea. God blew back the water with a mighty wind, leaving a dry path through the sea. The Hebrews crossed over on dry land, the waters forming a wall on their left and on their right. The Egyptian chariots followed, but their wheels got stuck in the mud. The Hebrews watched in awe as the waters returned and swallowed up Pharaoh's army. At last, they were really free. Moses led the people in a song of joy. Then his sister Miriam shook a tambourine, and the women sang and danced to thank God for saving them. This is the story of the Hebrews' flight to freedom. It is what is celebrated on Passover. And now we will hear the story of Jesus' last Passover meal with his friends before the crucifixion. When Jesus and the disciples went into Jerusalem on the day we call Palm Sunday, it was time for the Passover festival. Jewish people traveled from all over to Jerusalem. They came to remember how God sent Moses to lead them out of slavery into the Promised Land. An important part of this celebration was the Passover meal. Jesus sent his friends Peter and John into the city. He said, "Find a place where we can eat the Passover meal together." "Where do you want us to prepare the meal? We don't live here," they asked. "You will meet a man carrying a jar of water," answered Jesus. "He will show you an upstairs guest room in his house." Peter and John went to Jerusalem. They saw the man with the water jar. He showed them his upstairs guest room where the meal could be prepared, just like Jesus had said. Later, Jesus and all the disciples came to the upstairs room. When the meal was ready, they gathered around the table to eat the Passover meal of lamb, vegetables, and herbs. Jesus looked around the table. He said, "I am glad to eat this Passover meal with you. It might be a long time until we eat together again." Friends, we will continue the story of this meal tomorrow with how Jesus served his friends. And on Thursday, what we call Maundy Thursday, when we too will partake in this meal that now we call the Last Supper. See you tomorrow, friends.